People want to know this.
Yeah, of course, right?
Yeah.
These are the important things. This is what we spend. This is why we spend $500 on a pair of shoes instead of $300 sometimes, right?
So expensive.
Which is ridiculous. So we went, like I said, brought in the heavy artillery. My brother is an actual rocket scientist. He doesn't really get to tell us what he does for a job. He probably just makes up lies all the time. And he went deep into this one. So we've got a lot of stuff. So first of all, his assumptions. Once again, heavy artillery, folks. Important stuff. It says this is only finding the contribution of shoe weight, not bike drag, no drivetrain, no crank weight, nothing else, just the energy required to move the shoes. And every other form of weight, drag, and or other is stripped out so you can see just what the shoe weight does. Number 2, power transfer from the shoes, example, like stiffness, is neglected. That would be really hard to test. You can't just do that with math. You have to have sensors in a shoe to really test that. That'd be crazy.
I've talked about this before, but the stiffness in shoes, Specialized is so good at marketing that I think that if their 13 stiffness shoe saved 4 watts over 11, they would be singing that all the time, right? If they could measure it and it was more than a watt or even it was 1 watt, they'd be telling us.
Oh, yeah. We would know.
Someone at Specialized, if you've been like hiding that, they wouldn't just hide it, right? They'd be like, oh, yeah, it's actually 10 watts faster.
Yeah, so it's either it isn't or it's really hard to actually measure that and figure it out in an objective way, right?
Or it's so small that it's not worth telling people.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd rather have everyone just thinks stiffer's better.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and
but I like you Specialized.
Just on stiffness really quick, before we go too far into that, stiffness isn't always more stiffness isn't always best.
Sometimes your feet hurt.
Yeah, sometimes it hurts. Now, on the contrary, if you have a very flexy shoe, it very commonly causes discomfort because of the fact that your cleat is like a hard point and the rest of the shoe flexes around that. So that causes discomfort. So stiffness aside. Then he's also, my brother's assuming, a perfectly ideal cyclical pedal stroke. For at steady state, the weight of the shoes is not much of a factor, right? Because they're just moving over in the same motion like that. It is a factor primarily when accelerating. And so he said, I chose to analyze acceleration profile rather than a steady state profile.
Okay.
This is our profile, 0 to 90 RPM over 5 seconds. That's what we're dealing with here.
So I just want to say something. So, the objects in motion tend to stay in motion.
Yes.
It doesn't take much energy once something is heavier, once it's spun up, to keep it spinning up.
Well
it's
said.
The acceleration that we're concerned about, which happens a lot in cycling. So people are concerned, I got to start sprinting. I got to go from 90 to 120. But you're doing a pretty big acceleration, 0 to 90 over 5 seconds. So
5 seconds.
It's not incredible stat, but
because we would get joules if we don't have time, but since we add time into it, that's what makes it watts, right? So he says power is an output of energy over a period of time. So the arbitrary window of time is 5. So if we scroll down here in this wonderful document, this white paper, if I will, built up for this. So he says basically, if you plug in each shoe mass and solve with the formula that he has, and if you guys want to see this, let us know in the forum. We can put this in here. But he basically, and forgive me, I should say we picked a more extreme example. We picked the S-Works XC or the Recon shoe that they have, and then I picked their S-Works Exo shoe, which is like the very, very light shoe that they have. So the difference between that, I believe it's 260 to 340 grams. So you can see we're jumping bigger. Yep. Yeah. So a bigger difference between them. So he says if you put in the shoe mass for each one and you solve for the equation, it gives you a total work input of 0.7 joules for the heavy shoes and 0.3 joules for the light shoes. But then if you look at this, when the actual expense of watts is considered, it's 0.09 watts difference in total. So 9/100ths of a watt.
For 5 seconds.
Over 5 seconds. So that is a very small amount. In other words, as my brother says it, he says, in general, there's likely no perceptible difference between the two pairs of shoes in terms of their weight alone. If you can distinguish 9/100ths of a watt, when you spool up to pace, you're likely a product of Skynet. So
this is too. So like if you with the 5 seconds, you don't like it. If it's 0.7 joules for the heavy shoes and 0.3, so that's a difference of 0.4 joules or for 1 second, it would just be that. So half a watt for 1 second from 0 to 90. And I think from 0 to 90 in a second is pretty fast.
Yeah,
that's
it's
half
really
a watt.
Fast. Yeah.
So I don't.
Basically never happens.
Yeah, but so when you're actually cycling though, it's really like 90 to 100, right? And you usually ramp that up.
Yes. So it shows you really it really doesn't make a difference, right?
It doesn't make a difference.
But he also says, and I agree with this, if you look down and see some super expensive shoes on your feet and it makes you feel a bit stronger, that will be a bigger factor than the actual mass-based differences. And that's I totally agree. When you feel good, you race good. That's sort of a thing, right?
We're talking about how many grams again for the heavy to the light?
Yeah, I think it's 260 to 340.
So That's
backwards. Sorry.
yeah, like half a pound.
Less. It's like a third of a pound. Yeah.
Okay. So that climbing, to some of you will be like, oh, a third of a pound climbing.
Yep.
I will totally do that.
Yep. This
So
shows
that's a little bit.
we obsess over weight probably too much as cyclists. Actually, in fact, we totally do. Not probably. We absolutely obsess over weight too much as cyclists. And I think that it doesn't quite matter as much as we think. That said, for me, what shoes come down to is comfort, right? Like trying to find the right shoe for your foot.
Always, yeah.
And I loved the look of the Giro Tech laces, and I currently use them. They do not fit my
They're
foot.
too narrow. I've got like 3 pairs of Giros that are all just gleamingly perfect, and I have no use for them.
They fit me. Shoes are like saddles. So whatever we say, don't be like,
Oh, yeah, no.
It's totally individual.
Yes, and there's no like you can get demo saddles, right? But you can't get demo shoes.
I know.
They're really hard to find.
You can.
It's a narrow shoe, so you have to have a narrow foot. If you've got a wide forefoot, which I do, it's not the right shoe for you.
So Chad and I have the same size feet, but different shaped feet.
Yeah.
So we switch shoes. Occasionally, like we'll buy one and be like, I don't like this.
Do you like the Giros? They work for you?
I like the Giros, the laced ones.
I got a boatload of shoes for you.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Lightly used too.
Yeah.
But I've given you a few specialized
shoes.
ones that were not fitting me well.
Wider forefoot, and they work for me. They're not my favorite. Shimano's are my favorite.
So find a buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does. If you can find a friend that
it's
has the
the
same
best.
size shoe and then just borrow for a ride, amazing.
It's a big help. So generally what I've found is that Giros tend to fit narrow in the forefoot, wider in the heel. And that's where the big problem is for me. Specialized are wider in the forefoot, narrow in the heel. And they really kind of clamp down on that heel. Shimano is a good compromise between them, but it still has a roomy toe box. Shimano's are the best fitting ones that I've used. But that said, once I got cut, I thought Giros were impossible for me to use. In fact, I used to get pressure sores on the outside of my small toe.
Oh, yeah.
And they would be like extremely painful anytime I wore them.
Yeah.
And down to the point of blood filling up my shoe, right, and sock. So these things, got rid of those, right?
Yeah.
But now I have custom insoles, and I got them from, I'll mix it up, Surefoot. That's, I believe, the company, or Superfeet. No, Superfeet is like generic insoles. Surefoot, I believe, is the ones where you go to ski resorts and they do your custom boots. They will also do custom cycling insoles. You just bring in your shoes and they'll make them. And ever since I got those done, I can actually use Giros. And what I've found is that my foot in the front, it's still not ideal though, but my foot splayed out a ton when it wasn't properly
Because your
supported.
arch wasn't supported?
Yeah, and I have a really high arch, and my arch is really far forward rather than far back. So as a result, when I used like Specialized has the 3 heights of insole, I would even use the green one and it still wasn't enough. But once I got proper insoles, my foot's supported and it doesn't splay out.
I'm in the
so I
exact
don't
same
need
boat.
a wide
Maybe
forefoot.
you're not getting my Giros. I'm going to maybe get some custom insoles.
They're
it won't work.
expensive. It's like $250 for a pair of soles.
Oh, I know. I've got them in my ski boots, and they're wonderful.
The cool thing is I've had them, I'm going on the 3rd year now. And that's the thing. You can have these things for a long time.
Yeah, you can swap shoe to shoe to shoe.
Yeah, and I just swap them from shoe to shoe. So that's one thing. If you're really having a hard time finding them, you go get a custom insole made and then try it in your shoes and see if that works.
So Steve, going back to road and mountain bike, the thing that there's like the science part and the safety part. So using mountain bike shoes on the road, there's going to be some aero penalty. But if you're not racing, who cares?
Yeah, probably minimal. We should say it's not going to be a lot.
Yeah, the pedal could be. We could be talking. Depending on how you ride, it could be 5.
If you're a heel down person, more.
Yeah.
If you're a toe down, less.
The thing that I would be most concerned about would be sprinting like in the Crank Brothers or like an SPD. They don't lock you in. It's much easier to get out of those than a speed play
disengage,
or
yeah.
If you look
Shimano.
at one of our first race analysis videos, you'll see that in the video. A rider blowing out of a pedal and trying to sprint.
Oh, and he was in mountain bike.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
that would be the one thing. But if you're never sprinting, you're just like riding.
It's fine.
If you're like not racing, just keep your mountain bike shoes.
There are 2 things I would say with mountain bike pedals. First of all, he uses Crank Brothers egg beaters and candies. Crank Brothers have, when you push down into that mechanism, there is loss. And I don't care what anybody says, there's loss, because it's basically a spring-loaded egg beater that you would like look at an egg beater in a mixer, but it's just spring-loaded. And when you push down more, it splays out more.
So you think with every downstroke you're suffering that loss?
Yeah, there's a bit of loss, yeah. Especially when you press really hard.
0.0001 watts?
That's the thing. Might need to get my brother on it. Yeah. And then the same thing with SPDs, just not to as severe of a degree. That's like this traditional mountain bike pedal design you see from Shimano. I use Xpedos. They use the same design though. When I push really hard, and if you're getting into like pushing and pulling, so when I really steep gradients and you're fighting for traction on a mountain bike, for example, or on a road bike, when it's really steep and you're really just probably, taking some liberties at really throwing a lot of mass and torque into the pedals. When you're doing that sort of a thing, you are going to get more loss than like a locked in look pedal, for example, something like that, like a look road pedal where you're just locked in. So there will be some loss if you really want to get down to it. But for most people, it's totally fine. Use your mountain bike shoes and use your mountain bike pedals. It's not affecting things at all. So, and if any roadie gives you problems about that, take the group ride onto dirt and show them what's up. If you like that video, you should subscribe to our channel. There's more where that came from. And even like the video down below with a thumbs up or leave us a comment.
If you want to see race analysis videos, click right over here. And if you want to get your coaching questions answered, click over here.
And if you want to become a faster cyclist, head over to TrainerRoad.com. It works. Trust us.
Just trust us.
We guarantee it.
Oh, yeah. Or your money back.
It's true. Take us up on it.